This is The Win, Special Edition Raw, where I share my personal stories of failures and successes as a serial entrepreneur. My views on how to start and grow a business using today's top online marketing and sales strategies. So welcome to The Win, Raw, with me, your host, Heather Havenwood. Have you ever wanted to stop the 9-to-5 grind and start your own company? Do you want to have more control of your income and your time? Then now is that moment to start and grow a successful business. As a female entrepreneur, I have succeeded. I have bit the dust. I have bounced back to growth and prosperity. But this would not have been possible without first taking the leap and owning my own business. But I didn't do it alone. I hired my first business coach 13 years ago. And now I help small businesses, solo practitioners, and professionals double their income and triple their time off. So let me help you too. My gift to you today is a free one-on-one strategy session. So go to coachwithheather.com, coachwithheather.com, and let me help you double your income and triple your time off. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Raw with Heather Havenwood. The title of this episode is My Biggest Mistake I've Ever Made. And I'm going to be sharing that with you. And it's a little raw. I've been making these raw episodes way more actually emotional raw, which is the truth about entrepreneurship, the truth about business, generating business for yourself. One thing that I notice with my people that I'm a friend, I have very few friends in my life that have just like jobs, right? What I call jobs that go to work every day. There's only a few, and nothing wrong with that. It's just, when you're an entrepreneur, you start surrounding yourself with other entrepreneurs. And this particular friend in my life who's someone who just doesn't know what it takes to generate. Is a difference between when you go to a job, you could just show up. You could just show up and like do the thing. You don't have to generate, right? So a salesperson, even if they work for a company, they have to generate. There's an energy there. And so when you're having to generate your sales or generate your business as an entrepreneur, it's very different than just showing up at a job. Showing at a job, you can be dull and not have any sparkle. And when you're an entrepreneur, you have to what I call be on all the time, right? It's a very different process and it's a very different energy. And so as many of y'all know, I'm going through changes in my life right now, personally, as well as business. I'm going through, I've broken up with somebody. And so there's a grieving process to the relationship, and there's a grieving process of a lot of things that are going on. And I would love to just bury myself in a hole right now for like 2 weeks, or tell my boss, like, I'm taking 2 weeks off and going to Cancun, and then just show up kind of and 2 weeks later and just still get a paycheck. But that's not the real world. That's not the world I live in. And so when you're an entrepreneur and you take advice from a friend that is like, oh, just chill out, just relax, like take some time off. They don't know what it means to be an entrepreneur, because an entrepreneur, you have to generate yourself. If you're running the team, or you're generating copy, or you're generating sales, like, you have to be responsible for that. And so I find that people that are just in a job, who don't have to generate these sales, no matter what energy they're at, no matter what feeling they're at, no matter if they're excited or not excited, they still make the same amount of money. And when you're an entrepreneur, your money is very correlated to your energy and how you think and feel. If you're angry, if you're upset, if you're in grief and you're picking the phone, dialing for dollars, or doing sales calls, or trying to talk to clients or vendors, and your energy is very off, right? That can really affect things. So I wanted to share with you today the name and title of this episode, other than Raw, is My Number One Biggest Mistake. My number one. And it's not what you think it is. And I'm going to share that with you today. And this is going to be one of my last shows for the year, other than next week. Next week is my birthday. Yes, My birthday is June 27th. So give me a little shout out on Facebook and whatnot. Heather Havenwood, Facebook.com/Heather Havenwood. But this particular episode, I'm going to share this with you. My biggest mistake. Now, people who know my story, they know that I went through a massive bankruptcy and business, personal bankruptcy. The business didn't go bankrupt. The business is actually still successful to this day, almost 10, 11 years later. I had a bad business partner, right? So he stole from me. So I went through personal bankruptcy. I went through a financial catastrophe. You would think that would be my biggest mistake, but it's not, believe it or not. So I'm going to share some things with you. But first, I'm going to be reading today from a book called No BS Business Success by Dan Kennedy. And I really love this quote. And it resonated with me tonight as right before I did this episode. So here it is. No one ever would have crossed the ocean if he could have gotten off the ship in the storm. Wow, that particular, this just resonates with me right now. Really resonates with me because right now I feel like I am in the middle of a huge, long ass storm. And it's been going on for like 3 weeks. It's starting to calm down, right? But it's been a storm, at least if not 4 weeks at this point. And there have been many times I just wanted to jump off. And so this quote is perfect timing for me. And I like what he wrote about this. An entrepreneur can't get a divorce from the human emotions of anger, frustration, resentment, depression, grief, or fear. The difference between entrepreneurs and other people is the amount of time and energy given up to these emotions. I think this is really interesting because nowadays in the company world, the big business world, they're talking about all kinds of things like months time off or weeks time off for having a kid, paid leave for dads, paid leaves, all these paid leave. And I have to tell you, I understand it. And, I can definitely get behind it because I think men and women both should spend time with a kid. But I got to be honest with you, as an entrepreneur, I don't agree with it because, I take time off and I may or may not make money depending on the systems that I created for my business, right? Depending on me. So I can take time off anytime I want, but if I get paid or not is actually up to the creation I created versus like I demand it or deserve it. It's more of a reward that to take time off and get paid. That's a reward that I created as an entrepreneur, that you have the choice to create as an entrepreneur. But I don't like it when people say, well, I work for a company, therefore I should get it. So anyway, I'm not a big fan of that. And that's why a lot of people aren't entrepreneurs, right? So I get it. Here's another reading from the book, Dan Kennedy, No BS Business Success, because this resonates with me right now. And again, I'm going to tell you my biggest mistake. The entrepreneurial experience is going to challenge you at the very core of your being. At least once you want to quit. Okay, so want to quit. I'm in the almost double digit ranges at this point. I might be in the double digit range. I remember when I was on Marco Island, I really wanted to quit and become a waitress, which I did. I became a waitress for 3 weeks. I'm not very good at it. I got fired from that. Here's a good one that many people don't know about. So the name of the Outback Steakhouse and Truluck's, which is a seafood restaurant, is a couple in the South. They're actually owned by the same big company. Okay, and they make their waiters and waitresses, before they get hired, take these like tests. Not like tests like over the menu, like tests even if they get hired, like a psychological test or something. I don't think it's psychological. It's more like probably a disc test or something like this, right? I'm sure it's something like that. And I've taken it twice. Once at Outback Steakhouse, and the exact same test when I wanted to get hired at Truluck's in Naples, Florida. And both times when I was doing the interview and the manager's like, oh, you're great, you're nice, you talk to people really well, I'm really great at sales, of course you're going to be hired, this is great. And both times I had to take this test. It was like part of the process, like, here, fill out your W-2 form or whatever, and then take this test, and then you'll start on Monday. And both times both of the managers had come back to me and say, you failed this test. And to this day, I don't know what that test is. I really think it was probably a DISC test, if you're ever familiar with those, DISC. A DISC test kind of tells the view of somebody. And I'm a very a big entrepreneur. And what those tests probably for the waitress and waiter staff are testing for is that they follow the rules, stick to the rules, don't buck the system, right? And I failed both times. Now, when I first learned about it, I was devastated. Like, oh my gosh, I can't even become a waitress, right? But I think it was probably the best thing ever happened to me. So let's get into what my biggest mistake is. And let's first get into failures. Failures. One of my biggest mentors said to me one time, Heather, you've got to give yourself full permission to fail before you can give yourself permission to succeed. And I really got that at the time, because at the time I had never really given myself full permission to fail. And it's still hard for me. And I'm still struggling with that to this day, actually, is like allowing myself to fail a relationship, which is what I'm dealing with now, allowing myself to fail. The business didn't fail this time. It was, to me, the relationship failed. So allowing myself to deal with the failure of a relationship that I really thought would be like the one forever, right? So I'm still dealing with that. It's still a challenge for me and struggle with me. But he said that to me. He's like, you can never win in life. You can never succeed in life unless you give yourself full permission to fail. Now, from a business perspective, I really understand that. So it's like talking to NFL players saying, okay, you're going to be a great NFL player. And an NFL player says, great, I can't wait to be amazing, but I don't ever, ever, ever want to get hit. That is where the coach or the owner of the football team or whomever looks at the player and says, well, then get off my team. Because if you go into the game apprehensive in fear of getting hit, when you don't want to get hit, then A, you won't play as hard, B, you won't succeed. And that's how it is in entrepreneurship. If you go into entrepreneurial world or starting your own business going, I don't ever want to fail. I don't ever, ever, ever want to get hit. I don't ever want to fail. First of all, you're going to be too apprehensive and so afraid of the failure that you probably will fail, number one, because that's what I did. Number two, you're so apprehensive of failing that you won't play as hard. You won't go after. You won't move the needle. You won't push the wall for yourself. You'll play it safe, basically. And playing it safe as an entrepreneur is kind of the recipe for success. For failure. It's really the recipe for failure. You can't always play it safe. There are times to play it safe, and then you don't always have to play risk. But at the same time, you've got to be willing to get out there. You got to be willing to fall on your face and go, oh, I fell on my face. That's feedback. In an entrepreneurial world, you will find that there is no failure. There's only feedback. You probably heard that before. You also probably heard the statement, fail forward fast. That one I never really got until recently in my life. It was like, why would I fail forward fast? That's crazy. And mainly what that's doing is if you get to the failure as fast as possible, then you'll get to the success. I always go back to football. If you watch football players practice, even NFL players at the highest level, they're always pushing to get to the failure, because it's in the failure there's growth. In bodybuilding, which I am in, your muscle only grows at the failure point. So the whole point of bodybuilding, 3 sets, 4 sets, higher weight, is to get the muscle to fail. Once the muscle fails, then it's at that point the muscle goes, oh, we failed. We now need to grow. Literally, that's exactly what happens. So the same thing happens in entrepreneurship. Okay. I'm going to read this from Dan Kennedy. Again, No BS Success Systems. Here's a little tidbit he has. How you deal with failure determines whether or not you ever get the opportunity to deal with success. Wow. Right. Again, I feel like right now I'm in that phase where I'm dealing with failure. I'm dealing with the impact of feeling as if I failed. And dealing with the feedback I got from the situation, and then determining what the best choices are for me in the future. So I'm in that process right now, literally, like as we talk. So it's been interesting. Okay, so are you ready? Are you ready to hear my biggest failure ever? I wouldn't say biggest failure, my biggest mistake. And I think it's one of the, I wouldn't say reasons. I don't like that word reasons, but it definitely had a hand in the current situation that I'm in now, the relationship failure, or ending. I'll reframe that. The relationship ending, as well as the business restructuring, right? Because the business is successful, that it wasn't a failure. The business partnership has collapsed, so there's a restructuring. But and then there's looking for myself, feeling like, where did I fail here? Because this is not what I wanted. I really wanted something else. So here's what I see my biggest mistake has been. Giving a shit what other people think of me. That's it. Now, I don't know your response. And even saying it, I feel like people are going to turn this off. But here's what I've learned. I have given too much energy, too much focus on what other people think of me. And that has been my biggest mistake the last 15 years. If I had just not given a crap, a crap what people said, and just did the thing that I knew to do, that I knew what was right for me, and just focus and just went la 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 to everyone else and your crap and their judgments and assessments, I would be so far along the path of what I want. The challenge is I notice for myself, I've been taught, and women, I'm talking to you. You have been taught to care, to give a crap, to ask, what do you think of me? Do you like me? Do you like this outfit? Do other girls like me? Does that guy like me? We have been brainwashed to give a crap what people think of us. And you know what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what other people think of you. What matters, really matters, is what you think of you in that mirror. Are you integrity with yourself? Are you choosing the life you want? Are you being who you are? Are you speaking your truth? Now, I'm coming across like a preacher, like I do this every day. Let me be honest. I haven't. I've been scared to speak my truth. I've been scared to say who I really am. I have had more women this year be judgmental little wenches to me than I ever had in my life. They just think I want to know what they have to say about me. They've told me all kinds of negative stuff to me, publicly on social media, privately. Picked up the phone and said, yes, I want you to speak, and then come back 3 weeks later and go, oh, we hear that you do a book called Sexy Boss and we don't like it, so. And then I crumble. I go in tears. I literally fall apart. And I realize in that moment that I wasn't being my true self. Because at the reality point of it is like Sexy Boss, my book, and all my books, including the books that teaching men about dating, That's who I am. That's me. This is who I am. And it doesn't fit in the mold of a white girl who's blonde, who should be living in the burbs with 3.5 kids. It doesn't at all. It doesn't fit that mold. I'm a white girl that is an entrepreneur and is smart as hell. And that, in many ways, I've been told at least 100 times in my life, you scare people. And so what happens when I hear that is I take my energy from being really expansive and I just make it smaller and smaller and smaller. So if I can get really small, maybe they'll like me. Maybe they'll invite me to speak. Maybe they'll be my friend. And that has been my biggest mistake, because where I'm at right now is this is who I am. If you don't like it, please step away, move on, give me some space. And don't ask me to change. Don't ask me to be something I'm not. When I go to the gym, right? I told you that. Many of y'all know that. There's a person that comes in. I say person because she's a transgender. Now, if you see her, I know it's a her because I knew someone who lives next to her, right? She's never told me that. And transitioned to a man. He goes to the man's restroom. And now I know she is transgender just because I happen to know a neighbor. And I talk to her all the time. I don't know him or her, but I talk to him at the gym all the time. And I have to say, we just little stuff like, how are you doing? How's life? Kind of thing. I have to say, she's being who she is, right? She's being who he is. I have such respect, in a way, a little bit of a jealousy of him, because transgender is such a touchy subject, right? It's one of those things where you don't say anything. It's like, you just even though I know, I would never say anything because there's a taboo around it, or there's I don't want to hurt her feelings or his feelings. I don't want to make them feel uncomfortable, right? There's this kind of stigma to that where I don't want to say anything to make them feel uncomfortable. And yet, because I'm a white girl and I say that, I mean that, for some reason, it's like this automatic in my space. People just tell me how they think of me, what they think of me. I like you. I don't like you. I think your stuff sucks. It's part of me is excited that they could give me that feedback and there's open space. And part of me is God, did I ask? Just vote with your wallet or vote with your email or, like my stuff, or move on. Everyone's the judgment, everyone's the assessment. And I would say to everyone out there that people are going to judge you. The bigger you get, people are going to judge you. The louder you get, people are going to judge you. I've heard that before. And I am by no stretch of the imagination famous. I'm not. I'm not Madonna. I'm not Megyn Kelly. I'm not Jennifer Aniston. Not at all. Not even close. Something that I have done, my mistake, is I've listened and taken it in, all the feedback. Taking it in, taking the energy in, really listened to all the judgments, assessment. I took it on personally. And I was listening to Oprah recently on a video that she did. I don't know when it came out, but she said something really profound that I loved. She said she has interviewed over 36,000 people, which I didn't know that. That's pretty interesting. That's very, very credible. But she said, I learned at the beginning when she was doing the interview, she mentioned that she took on their energy to a point where she could feel them. Like she could feel their depression. She could feel their anger. She could feel their upset. She could feel their excitement. It made her sick. And I could understand that because that's what I do. I take on people's energy, and it can make you kind of sick in a way because not everyone's energy is clean. Not everyone's energy is light. Not everyone's energy is truthful and integrity, right? So when she said that, I was my ears perked up. Like, wow, I can understand Oprah right then. And then she said, what I've learned, how I learned to shift that was to not take on the energy, but to be with them. So someone's upset or someone was excited or someone was crying or devastated or grief. She said, I could be with them. I could be with the energy of them, but not have to take it on. And it allowed me to empathize with them. It allowed me to connect without taking on the energy. And that was profound for me. This is part of what I call the biggest mistake I've ever made, which is taking on people's feedback, taking on people's judgments and assessments, because a lot of times when people judge and assess, they're projecting their stuff, right? I took on that energy, and that's my biggest mistake. I'm just sharing that with you right now. And that's kind of the big umbrella of that is I was not selfish. And ladies, specifically, I'm talking to you. You've got to learn to be selfish. Take care of you first. Fill yourself up first. Fill yourself up. Take care of your finances first. Take care of your body first. Take care of your health first. Take care of your mind, body, and spirit first. You watch your finances, not someone else. Can you have someone, consult? Lawyer, bookkeeper, CPA? Yes. But that's very different than handing it over, right? Losing responsibility for it. I find a lot of women do this. I did for the last 2 years. Oh, that's where my biggest mistake has been. I did. Part of the process right now, I'm dealing with that. Is I just handed it over, right? Versus owning it and watching it. Being selfish. Ladies, I'm saying ladies because I feel like women have this more than men. Being selfish, ladies, is the number one gift you can give yourself and your entire family. Let me say that again. Being selfish and taking care of yourself is the number one gift you can give. Now, I can hear it already. People are screaming, yelling at me. But I want you to really think about it from a spiritual perspective as well, even a Christian perspective. Taking care of oneself, taking care of your connection to higher self or spirit, taking care of your internal, your financial, your health and well-being. It's only then when you're filled up that you can even give. And when you're listening to everyone's judgments and assessments of you, which tear you down, maybe they lift you up. Maybe it sounds like they're lifting you up, but they're actually tearing you down, which is like a double negative. But I honestly can tell you from full experience, listening to what everyone else thinks or feels or judges you is not the best thing for you. So my biggest mistake, circling back and wrapping this up, my biggest mistake has been not being selfish, and giving up myself, giving up what I knew to be true, giving up who I was, literally for somebody else. There's a difference between sacrificing and literally like losing oneself, which is what I did. I like lost myself versus just kind of like, sacrificed myself. It was a loss. So that's it. I just wanted to share that with you. My number one biggest mistake is not being selfish, not taking care of myself. And part of that is really giving a crap what other people think. Like giving a crap and not listening to myself and just being in tune with who I am in the mirror. And I'll leave you with this in the selfish piece. If you've ever traveled before by plane, they always say, if the masks come out from the top, please make sure you strap the mask on yourself before helping someone else, or an elderly person or a neighbor or a child. Why? Why would they do that? Why would they say? Because they know you've got to be breathing yourself before you take on somebody else. I was a lifeguard. At one point, I was actually trained as an advanced lifeguard. And the number one thing they teach the lifeguard is to actually stay alive. They say that because a person who is literally drowning is in panic. They are in panic. And so they will actually drown the other person to stay alive. They're in 100% survival mode. They are not in sharing mode. They're not in let me think about you mode. They are in I will take you down to breathe. So in the training as a lifeguard, you're learning to deal with someone who is in that state of massive survival and stay alive. And they say your number one goal is for you to stay alive. Yes, to save the person. Yes, but you have to be able to stay alive and breathe yourself. It's only in that moment can you even save them. Because if you get into your situation where it's you or them, they will choose themselves because they are in that survival mode. They don't have that cognitive thinking and that kind of panic. They are just thinking, I want to breathe, and they are in massive panic. So it's a all or nothing, right? So that's why you, as an entrepreneur, has to learn how to be selfish, take care of yourself first, and not listen to anyone. I'm talking anyone's crap about you, right? Who cares what anyone thinks, as they say? Who cares what anyone thinks? Take that on. I really invite you to take that on. And feel free to email me at media@sexybossinc.com on this one. I'm very curious what your feedback is. I'm curious. But at the same time, it's interesting. Or just rant. It's fine. I'm learning to not let anyone dull my sparkle. And as one of my mentors have said, if you don't like who I am, then give me a wide berth, because this is who I am, and I am big and I am strong and I have a big energy. And if you don't like it, no problem. Let's create some space between us. All right, everyone, this is Heather Havenwood. You can check me out at heatherhavenwood.com as well as facebook.com/Heather Havenwood, and email us at media@sexybossinc.com. Have a great day.